Hey everybody, Shadow Phoenix here. It is Tuesday, which means it is time for Whitaker Lake. Not just any Whitaker Lake. This is the last episode of Whitaker Lake. We have went through all 30 years of the park. And today's episode, which I had planned on last week, but I just never got done with the park. So today's episode is just kind of a fun farewell. So what we're going to do is just kind of take a look at everything that's actually in the park currently. We went through 30 years of construction. So for those of you who don't know what this park was, for those who are just coming into it, you know, not really kept up with the construction videos or anything, but you're kind of like, oh, here's a tour of the park, so I'll watch this. Basically, what I had started out doing, I started this park in challenge mode. And it was the first time I'd ever played challenge mode, and I was kind of thinking, you know, how can I make it fun for me? So what I did was I started off I did normal mode because I'd never played it before, and I wanted to have some money to kind of do some stuff with. And I decided to do a park just like actual parks are. You know, I feel like for example, you know, when most people play this game, they kind of cheat the system. They're like, oh, okay, I'm just going to take out a bunch of loans. We're going to build like, you know, 3 roller coasters, or, you know, just because that's what gets the money, and they up the sequences of stuff to get the thing. You know, there's a lot of like things you can do to kind of cheat the game and things work for you. So I didn't want to do that. What I did, this game basically was I experimented with how actual parks work. If you look at Six Flags, if you look at any Cedar Fair park, Kings Island, Cedar Point, etc., Kennywood, Dollywood, all of those, they usually only add like 1 new attraction a year. And most of the time it's only a roller coaster like every 3 or 4 years. So the experiment was to build a park like that. Start small, build once a year. So basically in March of each year, which is the beginning year, if you play the game, you know that the game starts out in March. That's its season. And it goes all the way into October. So at the beginning of March, I would pause the game, build whatever the attraction was, and then play out the rest of the year to kind of, you know, develop the park out. So we would put 1 new attraction in, we'd play it out, you know, make the money. We'd have to buy the research to get new attractions. We'd have to pay the employees, all that stuff. And see how long I could actually go. The only reason I stopped at 30 years is because the park was getting to a point where the frames per second was just horrible. With guests in this park, it was down to like 12 or 10 frames a second, and I couldn't play and build and stuff anymore, and I couldn't really enjoy it. So I thought, you know, well, let's end it at 30. Hadn't planned on it, but the other thing is we actually ran out of rides. Planet Coaster doesn't have enough like flat rides and other stuff that, you know, you can do a yearly thing with. So it is what it is. I also tried to add attractions in by the year that they actually came out as well. For example, no B&M inverts in like 1970s. So let's go ahead and jump into the park. Hopefully you guys have an idea of what it is that I was doing with it. A general idea anyway. Alright, so let's go in. And when we first started the park, the entrance was just this section right here. That's all it was. Over the years, I added the 2 sides onto it, and then we added the towers on in like, you know, I think it was around year 20 we added the towers. So I decided to start the park in 1977. That was the original year that the park opened. And it opened with the entrance. It opened with this carousel right here. And it also opened with 1 other ride, which was right over here. Now, when I first started playing this park a year ago, we did not have the Monte Leone. It was before the anniversary. I think I started playing this in like summer of last year. And we didn't have this ride. So what I had, and when you first start the game, you know, I wanted to do a wooden coaster. Oh, that's the other thing we had. The Aero coaster. That was the first ride as well. So we started with an Aero coaster. We started with the carousel and the entrance, and then we had that cycle, not commercial or whatever, or not commercial. Don't know even why that came in my head. The cycle, not, I think it's what it's called, ride. It's like the unicycles, the thing that spins around, and you know, you spin with it as it goes around and around and around this like track. So we started off with that because even though that ride wasn't actually invented in that year, at that particular point I hadn't decided to do the yearly thing as far as like, you know, the rides and stuff. I don't even know why I added it. I don't know what I was thinking, but I did. So later on, after we finished everything, I went back and changed it out to the ride. So we're going to pretend that this was one of the first rides to open in the park. And then we have the carousel. And then we have the aero coaster here that goes around the park. Now, it is modeled after Corkscrew at Cedar Point. I loved how Corkscrew has the actual corkscrews that go over the path, and I wanted to do that. So this coaster is actually designed somewhat after that. It's got a little airtime hill that goes over there. I used a let's see, where was it that oh, Vista View. So I made the actual station in Vista View first. So I just basically copied it was from my workshop. I have it on my workshop, and I'm just going to shift and go forward here. So the station itself is something I'd made in Vista View, put in my workshop for other people to download, and I just grabbed it from my workshop and was just like, you know what, we're just going to use this because it's awesome. It fits the theme, it fits the year, so it's very 70s looking, and we used it for that. So that was the station, and as you can see, it goes up and around. I added, you can't see them right now because it's daytime, but I did a red, white, and blue theme. And I also added these lights that run up the side of the lift hill. And those are the fairy tale lights, by the way. So they blink and stuff at night. But there you have it. So that was the coaster. The coaster is called Screaming Eagle. And then we have our carousel down here. And then the ride over there. Like I said, at the time it was a Cyclonauts. That was a huge mistake. And I corrected that much later on after I'd already finished the park, but still. We're going to just kind of go around the park. I'm going to kind of show stuff off. As we show stuff off, I'll tell you the year that we put it in and just kind of go over some things. The fence that you see over there is actually new as well. Originally, I was starting that fence out with doing planks, but now that we actually have the wooden fence that come in a Studios pack, I went ahead and just kind of replaced that to save some frames per second, save some pieces. These fences, what I would do is like I said, I would pause the game at the beginning of the year. I would build an attraction, then I would play out the rest of the year. So you're going to notice very simplistic builds in the park. It doesn't actually live up to my levels that I did in like Vista View or even in Crystal Gardens, because I was actually still learning the game at this time. I was still kind of finding my way around on how to build things. But also, you know, I had to rush and things, and we had to do with a budget as well. So I couldn't really like go into a ton of detail because it would cost a lot. So I would basically build the attraction, and then as the game played out through the year, I would add like fencing and another little onto it, trees and stuff as we went. So we would kind of get a little bit of income and be able to do things like that. So these fences came a little bit later on after I built the coasters. We kind of went around. Since we're over here on this side of the park, let's go ahead and jump into this area over here. So this whole area over here came around in... What year did I add? 1993. So in 1993, most parks, right around the 90s, most parks were building water parks. In addition, you know, on the sides of their parks, there was an additional cover charge and things like that. So 1993 is when Whitaker Lake added its own water park. So we have a custom built splash ride over here. Go. With effects. I wanted to build this like much bigger, but right there is the barrier, the edge of the property, so I couldn't go back any further. Now, of course, we can. I could have went into scenario mode and edited it out and everything. But now you gotta remember, we were playing this in challenge mode, so I didn't have that option at the time. This is what we had. So I only had this big, kind of small, not big, kind of small. I only had this small kind of strip of land over here to work with. So we built ourselves a little wave pool. If you guys are interested in this wave pool, you can find this on my workshop as well. The workshop link, my Steam workshop link, is in the video description below. Over here we have some changing rooms. You know, people would change into their bathing suits and stuff, things like that. We have a little surf's up shack, a little tiki shack where you can grab some tiki cheeky. I think there's like a gulpy stand or something on the other side here. We have bathrooms right here as well. All of this is for show because obviously the guests don't actually ride these. Now, I wanted to get this section of the park done as fast as possible, so not all the slides are created by me. This slide here that you're looking at, I found in a workshop. Not particularly fond of the actual slides. I love the support work, but the slides themselves I'm not particularly fond of. However, I had intended to go back and change those, and just never. I just don't. I think the turns and the slides are really, really sharp. I just don't think that's realistic. But also these big, gigantic connections on them as well. Other than that, I mean, it's not bad, but I really like the support structure. Now you come over here, there's a little, like a beach thing here, like a little sand castle I found on the workshop as well. All the stuff that I used from other people will be in, as long as I remembered it anyway, because some of the stuff I forgot who did it, but I will put in a link on the actual workshop download. So if you go to my workshop to download this park, you will find links to the workshop items as well, in case you're wondering who did it. I do want to give a shout out to the people that I did actually use their work. I tried not to use too much, but there is some pieces. Now, this one. These slides are perfect. Like, this is the kind of slides you would want, right? However, the support structure on this one is not good. So I had intended to redo the support structures on this as well. Never really got around to it. This slide over here is one that I did myself. So as you can see, the support structures are awesome and the slides aren't too shabby either. So this is one that I did myself. Took me about a week, I think, to put everything together on that. They're really not very easy to work with. I used Silv's water park pizzas that they use in Koala Beach to make this with. And then we also have a little kids play area over here as well, a little splashdown section. Neat little splash section. So the object here would be that, you know, they would be playing around, and then at certain times of the day, the giant thing there, the water tower would like explode with water. Certain times of the day, it would fill up gradually and then just kind of like explode and splash water all over the kids that were playing around there. The last one is all the way back here in the back. This one was added in a second phase of the water park. I'd intended to do more, but the water park slides were kind of a pain in the ass to do. They were basically what dropped my FPS quite a bit in the park, because these are a ton of pieces. You have no idea how bad these are. But this right here, I cannot remember the name of the guy who did it, but it is on, like I said, in a workshop for the park. I did give a shout out to the person who made this. It's a tornado slide. This was added in a second expansion, and I saw this when I was looking for water slide pieces originally, but I was like, oh, well, you can't add a tornado slide in the first year because they didn't exist in 1993. So, yeah, this was added in a second phase. It's fantastic. Look at this thing. It's so well built. So well built. I can't believe how great this thing looks. I wish we had actual water park things in the game. We would probably never get them. I know Planet Coaster, Frontier, they have said that we would never get a water park expansion. However, they say a lot of things, and most of those are lies. Things like, oh, we can't do glass. Even though there's glass pieces in the game, they can't do glass. Well, guess what? We got glass. So, other things, you know, they've talked about how they can't do the tower rides and things like that. So, you know, there's a lot of things. They said they would never put the, they can't go back and redo the track ride or the transport rides as testing now. Well, guess what? They did. So, take whatever Frontier says with a grain of salt, basically. That's my new theory, anyway. Yeah. But anyway. Alright, let's head out of the water park area. Turn this corner here. Shift again. Alright, we're going to head back over here. So, up this way, we're going to go into, over here on the left, you have the kickflip ride, is what it's called in the game. And it's basically known as a zipper. This thing was great. It added so many people loved riding the zipper. Everybody wanted to ride my zipper. Problem was my zipper would always break. I always had a broken zipper. Everyone wanted to ride it and it was always broken. Oh, I missed the car going over top of us there. This was added in year 2, by the way. There was another ride which was on the other side of the park there, which we'll look at when we come back around, but that was added. This was added in 1978, year 2 of the park. Coming around this way, we're going to go underneath this little time hill, little bunny hill here for our coaster. Look at this wall. This wall took me so long to do. It really did. Each of those is an individual, like, rock. So basically I made one section and then just copied the section all the way down through there. And then I went back and kind of moved a rock here and there to make it so it wasn't like, you know, made it seamless basically. This is the log flume. The log flume was added in 1983. Again, you know, this is something that was pretty amazing. This is one of my favorite things in the park right here. I did quite a good job on the actual layout and the lift hill and the support structure and stuff over there. All of that turned out great. I really do think. We'll get a little more into that as we head around that way. Over here, year 3, 1979, we added these antique cars. So basically, for the park to save money, we just basically copied the station from the coaster and put it over top of the antique cars. That way we wouldn't need another architectural design, so we could save money that way and just, you know, rebuild something we already had. It looked great. It looks fantastic. Over the course of building the park, I gradually added things to the antique cars to really make it and give it and kind of make it stand out and really be what I wanted. But the actual layout stayed the same. It comes around, it goes around in a circle, comes back across this bridge, goes under the bridge before it goes down. But we also have a little fountain area over here as well. Here's the dodgems. The dodgems were added in year 4, 1980 is the first year that the dodgems were added. Nothing special. A lot of people don't like the roof and the way that the dodgems are done, so a lot of people will try to do their own roofs and stuff for this. Or their own skins, per se. I like the dodgems. I wish we could do more with the color, but I like it. So we did a custom sign on it, and then I just kind of added a fence there, put some hedges in front of it. Nothing special. Like I said, I built really, really simple. Another ride that was added in the same year as the dodgems is the Troika, which I call the Disco. Now, at the time, I just basically plopped it down, added a fence around to it, didn't really bother much with it. Recently, over the past couple of weeks, I've been playing in Whitaker Lake to get it ready for version 3 for upload, and the final version, basically, the one that you can get now. And I went back and we added these little things right here to the top of it to kind of give it a little bit of character. Added some lights to it, so we call it the Disco, which is appropriate for 1980. Even though disco, I think, maybe died out in the 70s. Still, you know, it seemed like an appropriate name for the ride at that time. There was one more ride that got added in 1980, which we are going to run into right down here on the end. You can kind of see it over to the right now, but you may not be able to tell what it is from this distance, which is a scrambler. So I added a scrambler to the park in the same year. I really wish the scrambler in Planet Coaster didn't say scissor on it, because every time I see scissor, it just reminds me of South Park. I mean, you know, really wish it didn't say that. I love the lighting package on it. I just wish it had, you know, something else. I mean, this is basically a scrambler. Now, I get they couldn't use the actual names. That's fine. So just don't put a name on it at all. Would have been nice. But anyway. Over here we have a little sit-down patio area and some walk-up restaurants over here. The patio grill and refreshments. Pizza pan, we got a chief beef, you got drinks and stuff that you can get here. Quite busy when I built it, which I believe I added this about the same time I added this scrambler. So this was added in 1980, I think, as well. Over here we have the park's Wild Mouse coaster. Unfortunately, in Planet Coaster, we do not have an actual Wild Mouse. All we have is a spinning Wild Mouse. It took a long time to actually unlock this in the research thing, so this was added in around 2003, I think it was, when I added that. So it took me a while to actually get it added to the park, but so I themed it after the board game, Mousetrap. Made like a little custom sign there, and the lettering is, you know, actual. I know the lettering looks crappy, but that's how I wanted it to look. I wanted it to look like not fancy. It's kind of like cartoony, basically. Kind of a little bit like the actual board game. So I didn't, as I can see, I didn't do a lot of theming to it. I added this one little thing in here just to see if I could do it, which is, you know, like if you played Mousetrap, you know at the end, the object is to get your mouse over there and try to catch the mouse in the trap. So there we go. That's kind of what I kind of did to it. Nothing fancy. Again, the roof and stuff is kind of meh. This whole park is kind of meh, but it was entertaining to do it. Let's go around this way real quick. Okay, so here on the corner, let's go down this way. Zoom over here. Over there we have the monster. This was added in year 2. So the zipper and this right here. Your octopus ride. Back where I'm from, you know, Kings Island has an octopus ride and they call it the monster. When I would go to like our county fair, it was always called the monster at the county fair as well. So I always call this thing the monster. It's just, that's what it is to me. The big black octopus ride. Here we have a copy. It's a Zero ride. I think it's a Zero Tivoli or something like that. Kind of a recreation of one of their layouts that they have. Not an exact recreation, but, you know, within Planet Coaster, you know, I did what I could. When I built this, which was in 1985 was when this was added to the park, it didn't get any riders at all. Nobody wanted to ride it, which was another failure of a year because we just got done adding the haunted house to the park, which also did really bad, and it cost me a lot to build, and we spent a lot of money on it, and it kind of put the park in the debt. So, yeah. Running around this way here, we have Shipwrecked. Shipwrecked is your basic, you know, Viking ship, you know, clean ship ride. Almost every park has one. I did kind of a, you know, like a Swiss Family Robinson kind of piratey theme to it. We added some rocks and like a crash ship on the end of it. This was by far one of my favorite builds in the park. You know, nothing fancy, but it still came out really, really good. This was my way of trying to figure out a way to get this ship to go in the water. I really wish they didn't have a ride platform, or we could just do away with it. Because the ride platform is huge, and I just wish we didn't have it. And I added a little custom sign for it. Well, it's got lights down there that light it up. This leads into a section of the park that I added a few years later. What was the year that we added? So this was added in 1989. And then, after we added that, 1992 is when we expanded over this way. So, some restrooms. I kind of did like a Treasure Island kind of theme. So it's not really an island, it's more of a just kind of a section of the park. It's still, we call it the Treasure Island section. Very piratey. Built this little, you know, walk-up restaurants and things, walk-up dining here. And then right here is the main attraction we added in 1992, which was the River Rapids. Now the idea behind the theming for this is also, it's piratey and shipwrecked and stuff like that, like a pirate island. Kind of tropical. And the idea is that the station is built out of whatever pieces they could kind of salvage from, you know, wrecks and stuff. So it's metal, it's thatch, it's logs, it's wood, bamboo. You know, that's basically the idea. Nothing really fancy about the actual ride itself. We got some cool waterfall action going on over here. For those of you wondering, I'm guiding through the park using my controller. I use an Xbox controller to go through the park. So this really cool waterfall area right here is one thing of the ride that I really like. I like the station as well, but you know, kind of goes through a tunnel, comes up, ways around, and then I wanted to do like this whole whirlpool area over here. And the whirlpool section, let me just jump over there real quick. Ah, I hate the sticky keys. There we go. So the whirlpool section is something I was trying to do. I was trying to make a whirlpool like action here, and it didn't really come out too well. I wish we could kind of speed it up a little, but the idea is that, you know, you come off the drop and then you kind of go through a whirlpool before going through a tunnel, and then back into the station when you come out of the tunnel. But these aren't, now some people will say, well, how come you don't have the tentacles actually working? How come they're not animated? I am using them as statues. I don't think a park that is like a small family-owned regional park would actually have working animatronics of huge giant kraken tentacles, you know? So instead what they would do is they would probably have somebody do like painted fiberglass things, you know? So that's what these are supposed to be. It's like fiberglass painted tentacles that are sticking up out of the water. Maybe even painted stone. Who knows? That's the idea that I was kind of going for. It didn't really come out the way I wanted it to, but you know, you gotta work with what you got. You see, a lot of stuff is kind of like, it's kind of put together and thrown together kind of cheaply there. Like, I'm missing some walls here and there. So just bear with it. I did go back and we did like add as much things to it, like fencing. Like down through here, you'll notice it has fencing where there wasn't fencing before. Over the past 2 weeks, I've been going into the park and kind of adding a few things. Just trying to finish stuff up. But I didn't get everything. I did as much as I could find, and there are still things I missed. The next ride over here in the Treasure Island section is one of the park's biggest investments it ever made, which was a B&M invert that was added in 1996. And this thing, I love this thing. It looks beautiful at night too. So it goes through a 0G row down into the shipwreck, comes out of the shipwreck. I love this whole section of the park right. This whole section of the ride right here, with the waterfall going through the whole of the ship there, and the Cobra row coming around it. The whole shipwreck area comes around, kind of does a little airtime hill there. Goes around, swings around in a helix around the front of the ship over here that's been there for a while. Back in, does the rest of it. It's even got, I hate mid-course brake runs because I feel like it makes the track look horrible. But in this particular case, we did add it for a little bit of realism, and in order to cover that up, I built like some ruins and stuff back there that I thought was really cool. Also got this really cool little tiki thing right here too that I found on the workshop. Can't remember who did it, but like I said, on everything, I don't remember everything that I got off the workshop particularly, but I did put links to those, what I could remember, and you know, just to give shout outs and stuff to the download for the work. So if you're visit the workshop and you're getting ready to download this park, it tells all the credits for that right there. We're going to go over here. Let's check out the station. Now, the name of this coaster was Fathom, because Fathom was very piratey, is very sea, like naval kind of thing. You know, when you think about ships and stuff, Fathom is a word. In a shipsman, it's in a sailing vocabulary. Fathom's a word. So, and I really liked it. You know, it's kind of fathom. It's like a down below the water, and since this hangs from the bottom, it kind of has a little bit of meaning. So we got like a little Caribbean fort here, very piratey looking fort station. The sign was perfect for this as too. Love that, very piratey, fits the air hole area. That's all we have over here. One thing I was going to do, and I forgot to do it, was I was going to add like a seafood restaurant right here. A very pirate themed kind of seafood restaurant with a deck that kind of looked out over our pond here. Forgot to do it, so it's not added. Here's the exit for the next ride that we're going to check out. Let's head on over here. Added some bathrooms over here as well to this section as well when we started working on it. There's the Wild Mouse coaster. You can kind of get an idea where we are right now in the park. So another big attraction that the park added was the Racer, which is a dueling wooden coaster. This was the park's first wooden coaster. We added this in 1981, which was year 5 for the park. It is a recreation of the Racer at Kings Island. I also think King's Dominion has one as well, but I'm more familiar with the one in King's Island, so I did the best I could to recreate it. Basically, I was working on this during the beta for the game, for this recreation anyway, back when we didn't even have the option to do dueling coasters or even paint the wooden coasters. So I was a huge, pro person towards being able to paint the woodies. I used to go and like I would keep doing it. It's like we really need to be able to paint the wooden coasters. We want to paint the woodies, paint the woodies. I even had a whole thing. It was like hashtag paint your woodie, and I actually got banned from the Planet Coaster chat one time because I was posting paint your woodie, and apparently I don't think Frontier really knows their theme park vocabulary well enough, because they banned me for saying paint your woodie because they thought I was being dirty, and I wasn't. I was just like, hey, no, I'm just saying we need to be able to paint our wooden coasters. That's the whole thing. It's like a, I was trying to get everybody on the bandwagon for that, and I was the only one doing it though. So, but I wasn't the only one asking for it, and eventually we ended up getting the painted wooden coasters. Remember the days Frontier used to listen to us, add the things that we actually wanted in the game? Those were good days. I miss those days. Now we just get crap, if we even get anything at all. So to kind of complete the area here, the next year, let's see, it was actually, no, this was 1984. I added this restaurant right here, Red's Drive-In. This is from S.Dan Wolf. This one I remember. S.Dan Wolf, I know him very well, and I know he did this. This is, I think it's a recreation from a restaurant that's at Dollywood. So we added this little patio here to eat on, and we added this in there. I love this little restaurant. It's very, very well done. Could have been a little bit bigger in size, but then again, we didn't really have the space for it, so no big deal. We also will jump over here to the other side of the street, and let's take a look at the roller plane. Now, this would have been a ride that I probably would have added very first thing to the park, because these things are quite old. I believe like late 60s, early 70s. When these things, if not even before that. However, since I was playing challenge mode, I had to unlock it first, do research. So I finally got, I did get it early on, so I was finally able to add it in. This was added in 1982, the year after the racer was added. This was added, along with the Aeronauts, which is the balloon ride that you can kind of see right there on the corner, also on the edge of the lake. And we're going to jump over here. Now, originally, if you've watched my previous episodes, you would know that this right here, the giant swings used to sit here. The wave swinger. I moved it because the wave swinger looked much better on the other side of the street down on the end. So we moved those down there, and I added this Larson loop in here. So this would have been something that was added like after year 30, probably. Probably like in like 2013 or something, because these things, they did have Larson loopers like in the 70s and 80s and stuff, but none that were like the super loops. They were just kind of different. They were smaller. So these things, we're going to say that this was added after the year 30. So I also added this little water shooting area here as well in the last couple of weeks, just to kind of finish out our midway down through here. Boardwalk games and stuff like that, midway games, are always fun to have in a park. Since we don't have them in a game, we have to create our own. So the idea here is that, you pay your money and you get on one of these little water shooter guns here. And you got to shoot the target and fill up the target before your opponent fills his up. So right now, since nobody's actually operating it, we've got all the lights and stuff going off. But what would actually happen is whoever the winner is, there would be the lights that would actually start flashing like that. I think we're auto-saving. It's kind of... I used the lights that we just got in the Studios pack, the emergency lights, to create these. I think it turned out pretty good. Then we have over here a little ice cream shop that was just added as well the last week. Again, just to try to finish out our midway and stuff here. I'm not a big fan of these umbrellas, but for this particular thing, it actually works quite well. I love the colors on this. It's really nice. All right, let's move on. This was something that I added in the park, probably in the 80s as well. I don't remember exactly what year I added it. But I added a Midway Games booth kind of thing down through here, but I never did finish it out. It had like the booths there, but the booths were completely empty, and then I just put these things in here. And it was just a white-sided building with just like empty boxes. I had always intended to go in and finish it out and add my own games and stuff to it, but I never did. So over the last couple of weeks when I've been kind of finishing up the park, I just real quick, I took Ruble Trillions Midway Games, added them in there. You know, we got the derby thing here, we got the basket throw, the ring toss, the boat roller. All of those were just added here in the last week as well, just to kind of finish it out. I also did a little extra work on it, added some little details to the building to kind of finish it out. Continuing on down to Midway, something else I added later on was this here. So this would have been something that would have been added after year 30 as well. 360 power. My notes aren't 100% complete about the years and stuff, so I don't remember exactly what year I added Skylab, but it also would have been in the mid to late 80s. We added the Enterprise here, the Huss Enterprise, which is known as the Skylab. That's what I know it known as because that's what it was called at Kings Island when Kings Island had one. So I know it as a Skylab. It's a Huss Enterprise, but I know it as a Skylab, so that's what I called it. So that was added in like the mid to late 80s. I copied this down here because I wanted some more boardwalk games, some Midway games and stuff, and I didn't know what else to do, so I was in a hurry. I just kind of copied and pasted it from there up to here to kind of continue that. I also built this nice little building right here. This is a really, really cute, like very quaint restaurant, kind of walk-up dining option here. Monsieur Frites. So kind of a little bit like a Potato Works. Moving on down, there is our giant swings. The Wave Swinger is what it's kind of known as, which used to be down where the Larson Super Loop is, but I moved it up here and put it down by the lake because it looks much better here. And then I added its own little custom roof and really cute line and things here. Some fencing. The fencing around the actual ride itself and the lighting is something I did previously, but I did add the fencing to the queue line and the roof over top of that. Now we come to the Insanity. The Insanity was a ride that I was iffy about, but I feel, from what I could find, early ones were right around mid 80s to late 80s is when these things actually came about and started appearing in parks. The best of my knowledge, anyway, that's about when these things started. So we added this in 1987. This was all my attempt to try to get people to come down this Midway and try to start riding rides and stuff, so I started adding more rides as best I could because people won't visit the back of the park. They would either always go over to the log flume or they would come over here to this coaster over here and spend their entire money and all that, the entire day at those two. Those, like the Racer had a huge line that would just go all the way out. It was so crowded, and I was trying to get that crowd away from that. So I just kept adding rides and trying to make this Midway down through here the best I could. Next to this is a ride that we added in the 2000s. Don't remember exactly what year. Now, this is actually a ride that wouldn't have even been invented until after 2010, but I wasn't going to get to the year 2010. So I decided to go ahead and add it. The problem with Planet Coaster is that we don't have enough rides to do the yearly operation like I wanted. A lot of the stuff is like too new to be added in like the 80s or 90s or something like that, or even the 2000s. They decided to go with a bunch of like newer rides that didn't come about until 2010. So we're very limited on what we actually had to work with, and this was one of those times where I had to do a design choice and put it down in like the 2000s instead. Very basic theme, just kind of an airport. You know, got a little tower there. Nothing major. Here is the turnarounds for the racer. So if you go underneath the turnaround here, into this little plaza over here, you have the Screaminator, which is the park's drop tower. I call it Ripcord. This was added in 1999, so right before the turn of the century. There goes one of the racers, the other one's on the other side of us, doing their turnaround and back. Adding this right here was my entire intention from the very start of the park. As soon as I put the racer down, I knew I wanted to do this right here. So it took me until 1999 to actually get it in there, but we got it in there. We're going to move on up over here to the next attraction, which got a little bit of love here recently. I put a fence around it. I did a custom fence, which turned out really well. You see kind of like a little graveyard and stuff back there. So, of course, we're coming upon the haunted house. Now, I did this haunted house before we ever got the spooky pack and the dark rides and stuff. So we didn't really have anything to do haunted mansions and stuff with. So what I did was, I believe it was Fisherman who I saw this do this first. He took the wooden coaster, and instead of having a train, he just did like one car per train with multiple trains. He got his to work out quite well. I, however, did not. I did an excellent facade on the outside of it, if you look. Like this is an awesome looking outside. The interior, however, I put down some stuff and did some triggers and stuff to try to get the prestige up, but I couldn't get the prestige up high enough to actually bring people to ride it. The other thing, because it's a coaster, it's just not exciting enough for them. Track rides obviously bring in a lot of people, like the Pussycat ride and the water rides and stuff, but coasters, you have to add the excitement levels to it to get people to ride it. Otherwise, you end up with like a... I think the most I got this up to was 400 prestige. Some things happened in the recent updates though, and the prestige is now like really low. It's down to like 200. So it was at 400, now it's at 200. So I don't know what Frontier did, but they've messed with the prestige system, and totally they've ruined this even worse than what it was. For the first 4 years of operations, I think this ride only got like 6 visitors at most. So yeah, this was a huge failure for the park that I had intended to go back later on and actually fix once Spooky Pack came out and like redo it all and stuff, but we never did. We got a Huss Top Spin over here. This was added in 1991. And then in 1994, the park added the Raven, another attempt to get visitors to come back to the back of the park. I was hoping we got people to come ride a coaster back here. If we got a prestige ride back here that was high enough that they would also start riding that as well. Didn't really work out. This thing got a few visitors, but even with a mid-prestige system, it didn't get the visitors that it deserved. Those of you who have watched the series remember that I had this really ugly raven's head right over top of the sign there. Kind of built into it. When I was building it, I wasn't happy with it, but the people in my stream that were watching me on Twitch were like, you need to keep it. It looks awesome. And I'm like, I don't know. But I asked in the chat or the comments section when I was showing this off, the build of it, and most people were like, nah, get rid of it. It looks too cartoony. I was like, you're right. So we got rid of the bird, the raven's head that was awful on top of it, and just stuck with the... And I like that. That works out well. Coming over here, we have a funnel cake stand. This was added in the later years as well. It's a kind of some filler, basically, for the park. You can see I use these fake picnic tables because when I built this, we didn't actually have picnic tables yet. The fencing is brand new, though. I did just add the fencing around here last week, as well as actually decorate the building. The building itself was very simple. Just this cream color, and that was it. I had to sign on it, but I went in and I put the I turned this fence upside down and put it down through there to give it some nice flavoring, trim around it, you know, kind of make it look good. On down here, this right here is a custom ride done by an amazing person that I cannot remember their name. No, it starts with a K, but again, if you guys are interested, you can find the link for this in the download for the park in the Steam Workshop. KFC Charlie, that's who it was. It just suddenly hit me. KFC Charlie, I think, is the name of the guy who did this. He does amazing works with like these old rides and stuff that we custom built rides that these don't actually park. I really like this. So I thought the park would need a slingshot ride, and I found his. There were like 4 or 5, but his was the only one that kind of shows up from across the lake. The other ones would disappear when you got so far away from them. They looked so much better, but they would disappear, which was a shame. So I used his and kind of I did a little bit of custom work on it, but this is what we ended up with. It's mostly his. We got the witch ride over here, which was added in like early 90s, I think. Coming on down through here, we have this right here. Originally, I had a fake Music Express ride right here. Now, we did get the Monte Leone and the other ride later on in the anniversary edition, but we didn't have those at the time. So there was somebody who made like a Music Express. It looked really, really good, and I kind of had that plopped down. But I decided to switch that out for this right here. So I did that later on. This is something that was just kind of newly. Nothing special. I just plopped it down, and that's kind of it. I really did much. Moving on over here, we have Alpha. Alpha is the hypercoaster for the park and the last addition to the park, which you guys, if you watched the last episode of Whitaker Lake, you saw the build of this. And as I said in that, what this was is a tribute. I intended to end everything with a hypercoaster, and you know, we were going to do a hypercoaster. People kept saying, "Oh, you need to do a hypercoaster," and it's like, no, I'm not going to do a hypercoaster. It's 1982 in my park. I'm not going to do a hypercoaster in 1982. So, you know, finally I added it in year 30, which would have been, I think, year 2000. Actually, I guess it would have been 2007, I guess. Probably not 100%. Year 30. Whatever year 30 was to the park. Added this. I can't do math. So the objective of this, the reason it's called Alpha is because back when I first started streaming Planet Coaster and stuff and really getting it heavily, I've been streaming on Twitch for about 3 years, but when I really started doing YouTube and Twitch more heavily, I was really supported by a guy by the name of AlphaCoff. And at the time I'd said, if anybody donates or subscribes to Patreon, then they subscribe to Patreon for like more than $15, I'll do a custom coaster for him. So this was for him. He was long gone. He just kind of disappeared after a while. I've seen him around every now and then, but he doesn't really chat or anything. Don't know why. But this was a coaster that was in tribute to his support that he did back when I was first really getting heavily in. Now, of course, that would be Guy Chicago. Guy Chicago is like my biggest supporter right now, so he got his own restaurant. That's in Crystal Gardens. All right, moving on over here, we have, you guys loved this, but a couple of comments I got was how come I didn't use the water coaster. Well, when I built this, we didn't have the water coaster, so that's why I didn't use the water coaster. But as you guys see, if you, and most of you I think have because you watched the latest episode of Crystal Gardens, I did redo a ride like this using the water coaster, which came out much better. But this is what we had at the time, so I used the Anubis coaster cars, set them to 1, and they kind of look like boats. I did some trigger effects for it. Worked out really well. We did a giant flume. This was added in 1997 to the park. Over here we have go-karts. And these are lightly modeled after some go-karts that are in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. I really like the idea. I didn't have a whole lot of land to work with as far as like width, but I had length, so sure there's a joke there somewhere. We're going to move on over here across the way from the go-karts. And the go-karts were added in 1998. The go-karts, which is the speedway. Right there, you can see the sign for it with the station. Across from this, we added a like a buffet restaurant over here with some patio. This was the first time I ever had used the Knight Rider T-tops to do a curved glass ceiling. I also did the same thing in my Action Zone park that I did for Shy Guys World competition, as well as Crystal Gardens for the train station there. Now we're going to head over here on down the path. The best wooden coaster I feel I have ever made, right here. Sidewinder. It's kind of a GCI type of coaster. Very large. The drop on it is modeled after Wildcat at Hershey Park. Yeah, Hershey Park. The station is modeled after a bobsled coaster station at a Six Flags park. I want to say Six Flags New. Yeah, I think it is New England. And that's that. So I'll look at that, some more of that. Over here is an awesome recreation of the barn swing from Silver Dollar City and Dollywood. I had this thing sitting in my subscribe to thing from the workshop for a long time. Really wanted to use it. I loved this thing. And I finally found a use for it right here at Whitaker Lake. And it may not be the last time I use it either, because this thing is so well done that it deserves to be in as many parks as I can possibly do. So you'll probably see that thing pop up again at some point in the future. I can't remember who it is that did it though. So I think his name was Zen or something. Link, once again, will be in the workshop page for the park. The Tilt-A-Whirl, like I said, was at one point over on the other side of the park, but it got moved over here to this area later on. And we gave it a Western theme there. Now, from here, I also want to show you why this GCI Woody is called Sidewinder. Just use our shift key here to move over here. There we go. So it's got a double drop right there. Oh, perfect. Here comes a coaster. A double drop down, comes back up into a uphill S-curve into this like sideways helix right here before going back into its final brake run, right? Which there is some drive tires there as well to help it along. This was built before we had friction controls, so this was a pain in the butt to get it to actually make it back to the station. I spent an entire day on the layout of this coaster. It was a lot of fun though. I really enjoyed it. Since we're over here looking at this, here is the Thunderation recreation that I was doing. Oh, this is that. I was doing it about the same time I started this park, so I needed a mine train coaster for a year. This was added in 1988. So since I needed it and I already had a mine train I was working on, I was like, ooh, let's just kill two birds with one stone. Let's grab that, put it over here, continue working on it. That was the idea. There it comes out of the station. Again, this was done before we had friction control, so I had to embellish certain parts of the ride. But the entire Q station here is done out of custom planks, driftwood mostly. Some planks in there built in. We even had the little cave to walk through before you get into the station, as well as the switchbacks that go downhill. This was a pain as well to get these paths to work as smooth as I was able to get them. Sadly, according to JLW Games, and from what I've seen as well from some videos, they did away with this. When they built Time Traveler at Silver Dollar City, they did away with the switchbacks, and it looks like they also did away with the cave as well. Now it's just like it's like a bridge that kind of goes over and down to. So I personally thought this looked better, but when they built Time Traveler, I guess they just needed the space. So let's head over here. We got some generic Western buildings. Pretty sure these were actually made by Frontier and are part of the game when you actually. I don't think that came from anywhere else but them. So I thought they fit pretty good. These here, this back in the late 80s, early 90s, parks were adding these 4D rides to the parks. Kings Island had a lot of the Cedar Fair parks, or Paramount parks at that time, had basically 4D rides, what they were. And it's like a moving theater. So I made one myself here, and since it's in the western section of the park, I come up with a great idea of the Great Train Heist for it. I haven't ever showed this off really to anybody like in YouTube yet, so you guys can kind of get a great look at this building here. It's modeled after a train station is the idea. So we got a train in there. And what it would be like is you're one of the people on you're about to rob this train, so a lot of action scenes take place where on horseback or on the top of the train and stuff, lots of movement and things like that, which would help along. And the way I got people to actually go in and ride this is behind the scenes there's a Gears of Fear, and it's sunk down in the ground so it doesn't pop out of the roof at the top. And that's how I did that. Pretty proud of this. I really like this. And it doesn't get a whole lot of attention because, like I said, I didn't have a build video of it or anything, so it is what it is. Over here we have another, pretty sure another building that was just done by Frontier. I think this is just like a reset. Here's the exit for Thunderation. And something I just built in the last week as filler was the funnel cakes here. Nothing fancy, but we needed some filler space there. We got this little open area right here where people can kind of sit and relax and watch. This is the log flume, more of the log flume, I should say. Get a great view of the lift, the lighting, the custom hill, custom supported lift, and all that thing there. Other side of the street over here is a shop, like a souvenir shop. We have bathrooms. We have a little restaurant we'll take a look at in just a moment. Here's the station for the log flume. Nothing fancy. Views. In fact, I didn't even bother with doing an interior for this and like some stuff on there. So yeah, like I said, I built this part fairly simple. Alright, and here is a nice little restaurant that I did for this little area. This was added at the same time we did Reds. We added this over here, this side of the park. And we're just about at the end. Now I've taken you guys almost an hour through this park, so you guys who have stuck around for the entire thing, I very much appreciate it. This was some of the last things that we added. Right here were some bathrooms. Again, I use the same kind of bathrooms almost everywhere in the park, including the little water fountains that I did. Quick. Little ice cream shop right here that our giant frisbee swings over. And then we also have a little area over here where you can watch the fireworks and stuff added too. So as you're visiting the park around the 4th of July, you would be able to come and watch the fireworks. They're lit off on the lake back there. You can kind of see the stand that the fireworks are on. Giant frisbee, and yeah, I think that kind of does it. I believe I've showed you everything Whitaker Lake. So that does it for a final walkthrough of everything that we have in the park. The final episode of Whitaker Lake. 30 years, basically, that I went through on this and built everything that we could. I would have went further, but the frames per second, I can't have guests in a park. It just drops it so much that I can't run it and operate it and be able to record and do everything else that we need. So it is what it is. But hopefully you guys will go to my workshop on Steam, download this park, and enjoy it for yourselves. Take a ride on the coasters and the rides and everything, and take a look around and you know, just basically explore the park for yourself and all the little details that can't really be covered in a video and you can't really see in detail as I'm going through stuff. So you can look for yourselves on that. It is up for download now, the final version 3.0 of the park, on Steam Workshop right now. So thank you everybody for watching. You know, those of you who have watched every episode of Whitaker Lake, I very, very much appreciate it. Those of you who came in late and watched some of the later episodes, again, I appreciate that. Just a big shout out to all of my friends, everybody who helped, you know, get me to where I am today on YouTube and Twitch and everything. I very much appreciate it. So what's coming next? Well, I don't know yet. I've got some plans for some new parks. We're probably going to spend the next couple of Tuesdays, though, just doing some showcase videos for different coasters and stuff that I've done. And then from there, we also have Thursdays, which is going to be reserved for, you know, I've still got Vista View that we work on, as well as the park tours, which I am looking for parks for. If you guys got a park that's already done, you want to get it toured by me and taking a look around in the way that I do it, definitely submit those. There is a link down below this video in the description. It's a Google form link, so just go fill that out with your Steam Workshop link and send it over to me. We will also be doing the collab park with Beyond You and Hard Punk Core that we're working on as well. And also I'm doing the community park as well. So if you have a building or a ride or something you want to get submitted for that, you know, go check that out as well. Same thing as submitting a park for the park tour. Use the Google Forms in the description of the video. Do not post it in the comments. Do not message me on, you know, any kind of social media or anything and send me a link that way. Use the Google Forms, please. And where it says link for your Steam Workshop, just don't put coaster there. Somebody did that, literally. Somebody went to the forum, and where it says what's the link for your Steam Workshop, they just put in coaster. Yeah, so don't do that. It's fairly easy to do. It's a link. You click the link, you fill in the information, it sends it to me, and I'll take a look at it, and if I like it, we'll use it. So that's gonna do it for me, guys. One final farewell from Whitaker Lake and all the way around there. Glad you guys have enjoyed this park series. I can't wait to see what the future holds, the next park and all the other parks and stuff that I'm working on currently. Tune in for all of that. Keep subscribed to me. If you're not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Also, if you want to know, if you want notified when I go live on YouTube, which is rare, or if you want to know, you know, when my next video goes live, make sure you hit that little thing that says with a bell as well. In other words, you won't get a notification. Alright, that's going to do it for me. My name is Shadow Phoenix, guys. Thank you so much. Let's all say goodbye to Whitaker Lake. Goodbye, everybody. Hey everyone, if you'd like to help support me and my channel, I have a Patreon page where you can do just that. You can pledge anything from $1 or more. Anyone who pledges $15 or more gets a unique, specially designed roller coaster and Planet Coaster made just for them. My little way of saying thanks. You can also just send donations as well if you don't want to join Patreon. And you can find those links in the video description below. Every tiny red cent I make from these means the world to me and is extremely helpful. If you're interested in my PC setup that I work with and play on that you see here, every piece of the system is described below with links to Amazon if you want to purchase them or anything else. Thanks for tuning in to my videos and my channel. If you aren't already a subscriber, click that on the screen below. And you can also check out a few of my other videos on the screen here as well. You can keep up to date on what's going on in my own little world via Twitter or watch me stream live on Twitch as well. Links are in the video description below. So wherever you are in the world, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night.